It was past midnight when the knock came. At first, I thought I'd imagined it, the soft, hesitant sound echoing through the quiet of my small house on the outskirts of town. The rain had just stopped, and the smell of wet earth drifted through the open window. I sat motionless in the dim glow of a lamp, my book forgotten on my lap. Then, there it was again, this time not a knock, but the slow creak of the front door opening. My heart slammed against my ribs. E froze. And then, in a trembling voice that I hadn't heard in almost 8 years, someone whispered my name. Ethan, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a reminder that sometimes love returns when you least expect it. The voice was unmistakable. Ava. The girl who had once been my whole world, and who had vanished without a word the night before our wedding. For years, I'd convinced myself she was gone forever, swallowed by the distance, by silence, by the pain that came from loving someone who didn't stay. I'd tried to move on, throwing myself into work, rebuilding a life from the ashes of what we once had. But in that single whisper, the years melted away. I turned slowly toward the doorway, my pulse pounding in my ears. She stood there, drenched from the rain, wearing a dark green coat that clung to her shoulders. Her hair, now shorter, streaked with faint silver strands, framed a face I once knew better than my own. Her eyes, those same storm-gray eyes, glistened with something between fear and hope. For a long, breathless moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the ticking clock on the wall and the faint drip of water from her sleeves onto the wooden floor. I shouldn't have come, she said finally, her voice breaking like a fragile glass. But I didn't know where else to go. It took every ounce of willpower not to let the anger or the relief spill out. I wanted to shout. I wanted to ask why she had left, why she had broken me so completely. But all I could do was stare, torn between the ghost of the past and the fragile woman standing before me. "Come in," I said quietly. "You're soaked." I led her to the living room, still half disbelieving she was real. I handed her a towel, my hands trembling slightly. She took it, murmured a soft thank you, and sat down by the window. The rain had started again, light and rhythmic, tapping against the glass. For a while, we just listened to it, two strangers sitting in the ruins of an old love story. Then she spoke. "I didn't disappear because I stopped loving you," she said, eyes fixed on the dark sky outside. "I left because I was scared. My father was sick, Ethan. He'd lost everything after the company went under. The debts, they came after me. I didn't want you dragged into that." I clenched my fists. "You could have told me. We could have faced it together." She shook her head. "I thought I was protecting you. I thought leaving was the kindest thing I could do." Her words hung heavy in the air. Protection. Kindness. It felt cruel, the way she'd redefined them, leaving me to grieve her absence while she carried her own pain alone. I didn't answer. I just walked to the old record player in the corner and put on the vinyl she'd given me years ago, a collection of love songs we used to play during late afternoons, sunlight spilling across the old apartment floor. The melody filled the silence, wrapping us both in a bittersweet nostalgia. Ava closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek. "I lost him last year," she whispered. "My father. After he was gone, I didn't know what was left. I had no one. But then, I saw your name again." She looked at me, searching my face. "I saw your photo in the local paper. You were helping rebuild the community center after the flood. And I thought, if you could forgive the storm, maybe you could forgive." I turned away, my throat tight. I'd spent years learning to let go of her memory. I told myself that forgiveness didn't mean reconnection, that some doors should stay closed. But now here she was, standing in that doorway, fragile and lost, just like the first time I met her. We sat in silence for a long time, the sound of rain and the crackle of the record filling the space between us. I poured 2 cups of tea, just like old time. She wrapped her hands around the mug, her fingers trembling slightly. "Do you remember the park by the river?" she asked suddenly. I nodded. Of course I did. That's where we'd first met. I was sketching by the water, and she had dropped her scarf into the river trying to feed the ducks. I'd fished it out with a branch, and she'd laughed, saying I looked like some kind of hero from a forgotten story. That laugh had become the soundtrack of my world. She smiled faintly. "It's still there. I walk past it sometimes. I talk to you there, even though you're not there." Her words hit like a blade wrapped in velvet. I wanted to stay angry. I wanted to protect myself. But the truth was, I'd never stopped waiting. Not really. Even when I pretended to move on, some quiet, stubborn part of me still listened for her knock. The hours slipped by, and dawn began to bloom beyond the rain-streaked windows. The grey of night gave way to the faint gold of morning. She looked exhausted, her head leaning slightly against the couch. "You can stay," I said softly. "Just for a while, until you figure things out." Her lips trembled. "Thank you." I walked into the kitchen, heart heavy and strange. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. Forgiveness was never simple. It wasn't a key that unlocked the past, just a light that made the darkness less unbearable. Over the next few days, we settled into a quiet rhythm. She helped around the house, cooked breakfast, planted flowers in the small garden out back. I caught her humming sometimes the same tune from the old record. Slowly, the walls between us began to soften. But I also noticed the sadness that never fully left her eyes. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, she sat on the porch with a worn envelope in her hand. "What's that?" I asked. She hesitated. "It's from the hospital. My father's medical bills. I've been trying to pay them off. That's why I came back here. I need a job." Something inside me broke a little. She hadn't come back for comfort or forgiveness, at least not at first. She'd come because she had nowhere else to go. But then, again, maybe that didn't matter. Maybe we all come back to where love once lived when the world turns cold. I reached for her hand. "We'll figure it out," I said quietly. "Together this time." Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve that kind of kindness, Ethan." "Maybe not," I said, smiling faintly. "But kindness isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. From that day forward, things began to change. We worked side by side at the community center, painting walls, planting trees, helping rebuild the same town that had once watched us fall apart. Eva smiled more often now, not the bright, carefree smile from our youth, but a softer, truer one. I started sketching again. She started writing in her journal. It felt like we were slowly rewriting the ending of a story that had once broken both of us. One evening, about 2 months after she'd arrived, I found her in the garden, staring at the sunset. Her hair glowed like copper in the golden light. She looked peaceful, almost luminous. "Do you ever think we were meant to find each other again?" she asked. I took a deep breath. Maybe we were never meant to lose each other in the first